Maxine Waters tried to humiliate Jasmine Crockett. What she did next left Waters speechless. A veteran congresswoman with 3 decades of experience just discovered that seniority means nothing when facing a rookie who refuses to back down, proving political power isn't always about tenure. In this video, we'll break down how Maxine Waters' attempt to put rising star Jasmine Crockett in her place backfired spectacularly, and why Crockett's response revealed the changing dynamics of power in Washington. By the end, you'll understand why experience doesn't guarantee victory. If you were in Crockett's position, facing down a political legend trying to diminish your voice, would you fight back or fall in line? Drop your take in the comments. Should new members respect the hierarchy or challenge it head-on? Congressional hierarchies run deeper than most people realize. For decades, the unwritten rules have been clear. Newcomers defer to veterans, freshman members listen more than they speak, and seniority determines not just committee assignments but the very rhythm of power. These invisible protocols have shaped every interaction, every debate, and every policy decision on Capitol Hill. They're the guardrails that keep order, until someone decides those guardrails are actually barriers to progress. Enter Jasmine Crockett, the Texas congresswoman who arrived in Washington with something most rookies lack: the fearlessness to challenge anyone, anywhere, anytime. Unlike typical first-term representatives who spend months learning the ropes and respecting the established order, Crockett brought her courtroom instincts directly to the House floor. Her background as a trial lawyer had taught her that truth doesn't respect hierarchy and justice doesn't wait for permission. She understood that in high-stakes confrontations, hesitation is defeat. When Maxine Waters, 30-year veteran known as Auntie Maxine, decided to test this rising star, she expected the usual deference. Waters had earned her stripes through decades of fierce advocacy, viral soundbites, and uncompromising stances on everything from financial reform to civil rights. Her reputation preceded her into every room, every hearing, every confrontation. She was accustomed to commanding respect through experience alone. But Crockett didn't operate by traditional rules. When Waters attempted to put her in her place during what should have been a routine exchange, the younger congresswoman did something unexpected. She fought back with surgical precision. The result wasn't just surprising, it was revolutionary. Maxine Waters entered her interactions with Jasmine Crockett expecting the traditional dynamic between congressional veterans and newcomers: respect, deference, and perhaps a touch of reverence for 3 decades of battle-tested experience. Waters had earned her stripes fighting everyone from bank executives to presidents, building a reputation as Auntie Maxine through viral confrontations and uncompromising advocacy. When fresh faces arrive on Capitol Hill, they typically seek her guidance, not challenge her authority. But Crockett flipped that script from day one. Instead of playing the deferential rookie, she approached Waters as an equal, a fellow warrior ready for the same battles that had defined Waters' career. This wasn't about disrespect, it was about recognition. Crockett saw in Waters not just a senior colleague to appease, but a mentor to learn from and eventually stand alongside. The tension wasn't personal animosity, it was the natural friction that occurs when 2 strong personalities occupy the same space. What Waters discovered was something unexpected, a protege who wouldn't be contained by traditional expectations. Crockett brought her own legal background, her own fire, and her own approach to confrontation. When Waters tested this rising star's resolve, not to humiliate, but to measure her mettle, she got exactly what she was looking for: a fighter who could match her energy and amplify her message. The exchange revealed something crucial about power dynamics in Washington. Sometimes what looks like conflict from the outside is actually recognition from the inside. Waters wasn't trying to diminish Crockett. She was discovering whether this newcomer had the spine necessary to carry forward the work that Waters had started decades earlier. Jasmine Crockett's ability to stand toe-to-toe with congressional veterans didn't develop overnight in Washington. It was forged in Texas courtrooms, honed through years as a public defender, and sharpened by countless hours representing clients who couldn't afford to lose. Her legal background wasn't just professional training, it was combat preparation for exactly the kind of high-stakes confrontations that define political careers. When you've spent years defending people's freedom in front of hostile judges and aggressive prosecutors, sparring with senior congresswomen becomes just another Tuesday. As a public defender in Bowie County, Crockett learned that hesitation kills cases and confidence wins juries. She specialized in criminal defense and civil rights law, representing clients who often faced overwhelming odds against well-funded opponents. This wasn't corporate law or comfortable transactions. This was legal warfare where every word mattered and every pause could mean the difference between justice and injustice. That pressure cooker environment taught her to think quickly, speak clearly, and never back down when. And she knew she was right. Her transition from courtroom to Congress wasn't a career change. It was a venue change. The skills that made her effective before judges translated directly to effectiveness before committees. Cross-examining witnesses, dismantling weak arguments, and presenting compelling cases to skeptical audiences became second nature. When Maxine Waters tested her resolve, Crockett didn't see a senior congresswoman. She saw another opposing counsel trying to intimidate her client's advocate. Legal training breeds a particular kind of confidence that can't be manufactured through political coaching or media training. It's the confidence that comes from knowing your facts, understanding your position, and trusting your ability to articulate both under pressure. Crockett brought courtroom composure to congressional combat. The exchange between Waters and Crockett wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was unfolding against a backdrop of seismic generational tensions that have been reshaping the Democratic Party from within. Across the country, younger Democrats are launching primary challenges against established leaders, questioning whether decades of experience can still address today's rapidly evolving challenges. The party is grappling with a fundamental question: should leadership be about institutional knowledge or fresh perspectives? Recent polling reveals the depth of this divide. 55% of Democrats express pessimism about how leaders are chosen within their own party, with many younger members feeling disconnected from an establishment that seems out of touch with generational priorities. From climate action to economic justice, younger Democrats often favor more aggressive approaches than their senior colleagues, creating natural friction points in strategy sessions and public forums. Waters represents the old guard, battle-tested, experienced, and shaped by decades of institutional combat. She's seen presidential impeachments, financial crises, and countless political storms. Her approach is informed by hard-won wisdom about what works in Washington's complex machinery. Crockett embodies the new generation, impatient with incremental progress, skilled in digital communication, and unimpressed by traditional hierarchies that seem to slow down necessary change. This isn't just about age. It's about different theories of power. The older generation learned to navigate systems and build coalitions slowly. The newer generation believes those same systems are failing and need disruption, not navigation. When these philosophies collide in real time, the result can look like conflict, but it's actually the Democratic Party evolving in public. Both approaches have merit, and both women understand that their party's future depends on finding ways to bridge these divides rather than widen them. The anti-Maxine phenomenon didn't emerge overnight. It was decades in the making, built through countless moments where Maxine Waters chose courage over comfort, truth over politics, and authentic outrage over manufactured diplomacy. Since entering Congress in 1991, Waters had been throwing political punches that other members wouldn't dare attempt, earning nicknames like Kerosene Maxine for her fiery rhetoric and uncompromising stances on issues from police brutality to financial reform. But it was the Trump era that transformed Waters from a respected but relatively niche congressional veteran into a viral sensation beloved by millennials and Gen Z activists. Her withering stares during hearings, her refusal to be silenced by parliamentary procedures, and her signature phrase, "reclaiming my time," became rallying cries for a generation hungry for politic. Shanians who would actually fight back. Young progressives didn't just admire her policies. They fell in love with her fearlessness. The auntie designation came from humor columnist R. Eric Thomas, who perfectly captured Waters' essence. She was that auntie who got rich selling Avon and doesn't really like your father. It was affectionate mockery that became genuine reverence. Waters embraced the nickname wholeheartedly, understanding that it represented something powerful, the wisdom of an elder who had earned the right to speak truth without caring about consequences. Her reputation wasn't just about being loud, it was about being right, consistently, for decades. From advocating divestment from apartheid South Africa in the 1980s to warning about predatory lending practices before the financial crisis, Waters had developed a track record of taking unpopular stands that history later vindicated. That credibility gave weight to her contemporary battles and explained why younger politicians sought her approval. Jasmine Crockett's ability to hold her own alongside political veterans like Maxine Waters wasn't luck. It was the product of meticulous preparation combined with an unshakable understanding of her own worth. When you've spent years as a public defender, you learn that every case depends on knowing your facts better than anyone else in the room. That same discipline carried directly into Congress, where Crockett approached every hearing, every committee session, and every interaction with the thoroughness of a trial attorney preparing for court. Her preparation strategy was multi-layered. First, she studied the issues until she could discuss them from every conceivable angle. Second, she researched the people she'd be interacting with, their positions, their histories, their likely approaches to various topics. Third, and perhaps most importantly, she maintained absolute clarity about her own values and priorities, ensuring that no matter how intense the pressure became, she'd never compromise her core principles for political convenience. This preparation proved crucial when engaging with someone of Waters' stature and reputation. Rather than being intimidated by the veteran Congresswoman's legendary status, Crockett approached their interactions as opportunities to learn from a master while contributing her own perspective. She understood that respect is earned through competence, not through deference alone. Her legal background had taught her that the best way to honor someone's expertise is to bring your own expertise to the table. The key insight here transcends politics entirely. In any professional environment, preparation beats intimidation every time. When you know your material inside and out, when you've thought through potential challenges and responses, and when you're grounded in your own values, even the most intimidating personalities become simply other professionals to engage with respectfully but confidently. The confrontation between Waters and Crockett wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was unfolding in an era where every congressional interaction gets dissected, clipped, and amplified across social media platforms within minutes of occurring. What might have once been a private mentoring moment or professional disagreement between colleagues now becomes public theater, complete with commentary tracks and viral hashtags. The cameras don't just record congressional proceedings. They transform them into entertainment content for millions of viewers hungry for political drama. This media amplification effect creates a fascinating paradox. Politicians like Waters and Crockett understand they're performing for two audiences simultaneously, their immediate colleagues in the room and the broader public watching from home. Every gesture, every phrase, and every facial expression gets scrutinized not just for its political merit, but for its viral potential. A heated exchange that might have been forgotten within hours in previous decades now lives forever on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. The irony is that both women have mastered this new media landscape. Waters' "Reclaiming My Time" became a cultural phenomenon precisely because it translated perfectly from congressional hearing to social media clip. Crockett's own viral moments have established her as a rising star, partly because she understands how to communicate complex policy positions in soundbite-friendly formats that resonate with younger audiences. This amplification process doesn't just change how politicians communicate, it changes the very nature of political relationships. What appears as conflict to outside observers might actually be strategic positioning for different audiences. The confrontation serves multiple purposes: establishing credentials, demonstrating independence, and creating content that keeps both figures relevant in an increasingly crowded media landscape. The Congressional Black Caucus has always been a fascinating laboratory for different approaches to Black political leadership, and the relationship between Waters and Crockett reflects broader conversations happening within the caucus about how to most effectively advance their shared agenda. With 60 members ranging from institutional veterans to digital native newcomers, the CBC encompasses multiple generations, ideological perspectives, and strategic philosophies about wielding power in Washington. Under Chairwoman Yvette Clarke's leadership, the CBC has been grappling with fundamental questions about whether incremental progress through traditional committee work is sufficient for addressing urgent community needs, or whether more confrontational approaches are necessary to break through systemic barriers. Some members, like Waters, have built their careers on mastering institutional processes while maintaining their willingness to challenge authority when necessary. Others, like Crockett, represent a newer school of thought that emphasizes public accountability and viral moments as tools for policy advancement. These internal debates aren't destructive, they're productive tensions that help the CBC adapt to changing political landscapes. The caucus has historically been most effective when it could deploy multiple strategies simultaneously, some members working behind the scenes to craft legislation, others generating public pressure to advance it, and still others building coalitions across racial and ideological lines to ensure passage. The Carnegie Endowment recently highlighted how CBC members have served as foreign policy thought leaders by taking principled dissenting positions that eventually gained broader support. This tradition of intellectual courage requires both institutional knowledge and willingness to challenge orthodoxy, qualities that both Waters and Crockett possess in different measures. Their dynamic reflects the CBC's evolution from a small group of outsiders demanding recognition to a powerful caucus with enough internal diversity to pursue multiple paths toward the same goals. The strength lies not in uniformity, but in strategic diversity. Before we dive deeper into the aftermath and what this means for the future of Democratic leadership, smash that subscribe button, because political power shifts like this deserve analysis, not just headlines. The moment clips of Waters and Crockett's interactions hit social media, they didn't just spread, they exploded across platforms with the force of a political earthquake. Within hours, their exchanges were being dissected on Twitter, remixed on TikTok, and analyzed on cable news shows. But here's what made their viral moments different from typical political theater. Instead of dividing audiences, they united them around a shared appreciation for authentic Black women refusing to be diminished by anyone, anywhere, anytime. The viral surge reshaped public perceptions of both women almost overnight. Waters, already beloved as Auntie Maxine, gained additional layers of respect as viewers watched her engage with Crockett not as a rival, but as a mentor, recognizing genuine talent. Her willingness to share space with a rising star demonstrated the kind of leadership that builds movements rather than hoarding power. Meanwhile, Crockett's ability to hold her own alongside a congressional legend elevated her from promising newcomer to national force in record time. What made their exchanges particularly compelling was the visible respect flowing both directions. This wasn't older generation versus younger generation. It was experienced wisdom meeting fresh energy, creating something more powerful than either could achieve alone. Social media users didn't have to choose sides. They could celebrate both women simultaneously. The viral nature of their interactions also revealed something crucial about contemporary political engagement. Audiences were hungry for authentic moments where Black women demonstrated unapologetic excellence. The clips didn't just entertain, they inspired. Young women across the country saw examples of how to command respect, share space, and build power without compromising their values or diminishing others. In the aftermath of her exchanges with Crockett, Maxine Waters demonstrated something that separates seasoned political veterans from impulsive newcomers: the wisdom of strategic silence. While observers waited for potential escalation or further confrontation, Waters chose a different path entirely. Her measured response, or deliberate non-response, revealed a sophisticated understanding of political timing and the power dynamics that govern congressional relationships. Sometimes the most powerful move is knowing when not to make one. Waters' silence wasn't weakness, it was calculation. After 3 decades in Congress, she understood that every political confrontation presents multiple exit ramps, and the most experienced politicians know which ones to take. Escalation might have satisfied those hungry for drama, but it would have served no strategic purpose. Instead, Waters chose to let Crockett's competence speak for itself, demonstrating the kind of leadership that builds coalitions rather than burns bridges. This restraint reflected Waters' broader understanding of her role within the Democratic caucus. As one of the party's most senior members, her job isn't to crush rising stars, it's to cultivate them. Her silence created space for Crockett to establish her own voice and credibility without overshadowing or undermining her potential. It was mentorship disguised as restraint, guidance offered through strategic absence rather than overwhelming presence. The decision also protected both women from media narratives that might have portrayed their interaction as destructive infighting rather than productive engagement. By refusing to provide additional fuel for sensationalized coverage, Waters ensured their relationship could develop privately while maintaining public respect for both their positions. Her approach demonstrated that true political power sometimes manifests not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say, allowing others to shine while preserving your own dignity and strategic positioning. The relationship between Waters and Crockett reveals one of the most complex dynamics in congressional politics: the delicate balance between mentorship and competition that defines interactions between established leaders and rising stars. In most professional environments, these relationships are straightforward. Senior colleagues guide junior ones, creating clear hierarchies and expectations. But in Congress, where every member is elected independently and serves at the pleasure of their own constituents, the dynamics become infinitely more nuanced. Waters understood something crucial that many veteran politicians miss. True mentorship requires creating space for mentees to shine, even when that means stepping back from the spotlight herself. Her approach with Crockett wasn't about maintaining dominance or ensuring deference. It was about recognizing genuine talent and helping it flourish. This distinction separates authentic leaders from those who simply occupy leadership positions. For Crockett, the challenge was equally complex. How do you learn from someone without appearing dependent? How do you show respect without compromising your own voice? How do you build relationships with powerful colleagues without sacrificing the independence that got you elected in the first place? Her solution was to engage Waters as an equal while remaining open to guidance, a balance that requires both confidence and humility. The Congressional Black Caucus has historically navigated these tensions better than most caucuses because its members understand that their collective strength depends on individual excellence. When Waters mentors someone like Crockett, she's not just helping one person, she's strengthening the entire caucus's capacity to advance shared priorities. The competition isn't destructive because the goals are aligned. This dynamic extends far beyond Congress. In any organization where talent matters more than tenure, the most effective leaders understand that their job isn't to suppress rising stars, but to help them shine brighter. Jasmine Crockett's rise represents something larger than one woman's political success. She embodies a fundamental shift in how younger politicians approach power, communication, and authenticity in the digital age. Unlike previous generations who carefully crafted polished personas designed to offend no one, Crockett and her contemporaries have discovered that genuine connection often trumps diplomatic perfection. They've learned from watching politicians like Cori Bush, who paid a political price for her authenticity but maintained her voice and values even after losing her seat. This new generation of political leaders understands that voters are exhausted by carefully scripted talking points and focus group-tested messaging. They want to see real people grappling with real problems in real time. Crockett's willingness to speak plainly about complex issues, to show emotion when discussing injustice, and to maintain her Texas roots while navigating Washington corridors reflects this broader trend toward authentic political communication. The contrast with traditional political polish is striking. Where older politicians might spend hours crafting statements that say nothing while sounding important, Crockett delivers clear, direct communication that resonates immediately with audiences. Her background as a trial lawyer trained her to speak to juries of regular people, not panels of political insiders, and that training serves her well in an era where social media has democratized political discourse. This authenticity trend extends beyond individual politicians to represent a generational response to decades of political disappointment. Younger voters, particularly those who came of age during economic crises and social upheavals, have developed sophisticated filters for detecting performative politics. They respond to leaders who demonstrate substance over style, even when that substance comes wrapped in less polished delivery. Crockett's success suggests that political effectiveness in the modern era depends less on traditional qualifications and more on the ability to connect authentically with diverse constituencies while maintaining core principles. The exchange between Waters and Crockett illuminated something fascinating about generational differences in political conflict resolution. Older politicians often prefer institutional maneuvering, while younger ones lean toward direct confrontation. These aren't personality quirks. Their strategic approaches shaped by different political environments and communication technologies. Waters came of age during an era when backroom negotiations and committee relationships determined legislative outcomes, while Crockett entered politics when social media could mobilize public pressure faster than any traditional lobbying effort. Waters' generation learned to work within existing systems because those systems, however flawed, represented the primary pathways to power. They mastered the art of coalition building, understood the importance of procedural knowledge, and developed patience for incremental progress because sudden changes were historically rare. This approach required diplomatic skills, strategic timing, and the ability to maintain relationships even with adversaries, because today's opponent might become tomorrow's essential ally. Crockett's generation approaches conflict with different tools and expectations. They've witnessed how viral moments can shift public opinion overnight, how grassroots organizing can override traditional power structures, and how authentic communication can bypass institutional gatekeepers entirely. Their willingness to engage in direct confrontation isn't recklessness. It's a calculated strategy based on understanding that public press sure often works faster than private negotiations. Both approaches have merit depending on the context. Institutional maneuvering excels at complex policy negotiations where multiple stakeholders must be satisfied. Direct confrontation works better when moral clarity matters more than procedural finesse, when public education is as important as legislative outcomes, and when time pressure demands immediate action rather than gradual progress. The most effective modern politicians, like both Waters and Crockett, understand how to deploy both strategies appropriately. They know when to work behind the scenes and when to take their case directly to the public. Behind the scenes, both Maxine Waters and Jasmine Crockett likely understood something that many observers missed. Their public interactions contained a carefully calibrated element of political theater designed to serve multiple strategic purposes simultaneously. Modern congressional politics operates on multiple levels, and successful politicians learn to navigate both the substantive policy work and the performance aspects that shape public perception and media narratives. Waters, with 3 decades of experience, had mastered the art of using dramatic moments to advance serious policy goals. Her viral confrontations weren't accidents. They were strategic communications designed to cut through media noise and reach audiences who might otherwise ignore complex financial regulations or civil rights legislation. When she engaged with Crockett, she was simultaneously mentoring a rising star and creating content that would reinforce both of their positions as fearless advocates for their communities. Crockett, with her legal background and digital age political instincts, understood how these exchanges would play across social media platforms and cable news shows. Her responses weren't just reactions. They were performances designed to demonstrate her capability to stand alongside congressional legends while maintaining her own authentic voice. Every word choice, every gesture, and every pause was calculated to reinforce her brand as someone who couldn't be intimidated or diminished by traditional hierarchies. This theatrical element doesn't diminish the authenticity of their relationship or their policy commitments. It enhances their effectiveness. Both women recognize that in contemporary politics, substance without performance often gets ignored, while performance without substance gets exposed quickly. Their ability to blend genuine policy expertise with compelling personal narratives and dramatic moments made them more effective advocates for their shared priorities. The sophistication of their approach revealed itself in the outcomes. Both emerged from their exchanges with enhanced reputations and stronger platforms for advancing their legislative agendas. The Congressional Black Caucus has always been a fascinating laboratory for different approaches to Black political leadership, and the relationship between Waters and Crockett reflects broader conversations happening within the caucus about how to most effectively advance their shared agenda. With 60 members ranging from institutional veterans to digital native newcomers, the CBC encompasses multiple generations, ideological perspectives, and strategic philosophies about wielding power in Washington. Under Chairwoman Yvette Clarke's leadership, the CBC has been grappling with fundamental questions about whether incremental progress through traditional committee work is sufficient for addressing urgent community needs, or whether more confrontational approaches are necessary to break through systemic barriers. Some members, like Waters, have built their careers on mastering institutional processes while maintaining their willingness to challenge authority when necessary. Others, like Crockett, represent a newer school of thought that emphasizes public accountability and viral moments as tools for policy advancement. These internal debates aren't destructive, they're productive tensions that help the CBC adapt to changing political landscapes. The caucus has historically been most effective when it could deploy multiple strategies simultaneously, some members working behind the scenes to craft legislation, others generating public pressure to advance it, and still others building coalitions across racial and ideological lines to ensure passage. The Carnegie Endowment recently highlighted how CBC members have served as foreign policy thought leaders by taking principled dissenting positions that eventually gained broader support. This tradition of intellectual courage requires both institutional knowledge and willingness to challenge orthodoxy, qualities that both Waters and Crockett possess in different measures. Their dynamic reflects the CBC's evolution from a small group of outsiders demanding recognition to a powerful caucus, with enough internal diversity to pursue multiple paths toward the same goals. The strength lies not in uniformity, but in strategic diversity. The most remarkable aspect of the Waters-Crockett relationship might be how much they share despite representing different political generations. Both women were born and raised in St. Louis. As Crockett notes, there must have been something in the water in the show-me state, and both developed their political consciousness in communities that demanded authenticity over artifice. Their shared Missouri roots created similar foundations. Strong work ethics, plain-spoken communication styles, and an instinctive distrust of political theater that prioritizes performance over results. Yet their paths to power diverged dramatically due to the different eras they entered politics. Waters came of age during the post-civil rights movement, when black political leaders had to fight for basic recognition and representation within existing institutions. Her generation learned to be strategic about when to confront and when to collaborate, understanding that progress often required patience and incremental victories. She built her career by mastering committee processes, developing expertise in complex policy areas like financial services, and earning respect through sustained legislative achievements. Crockett entered politics during the social media age, when viral moments could create national platforms overnight and grassroots organizing could bypass traditional gatekeepers entirely. Her generation expects faster results and has different tools for achieving them. Where Waters spent decades building institutional credibility, Crockett could leverage her legal background and digital fluency to establish herself as a national voice within months of arriving in Congress. Despite these different approaches, both women share the same core mission, using their platforms to advance justice for communities that have been historically marginalized. Waters paved the way for politicians like Crockett to speak boldly and act fearlessly. Crockett, in turn, represents the evolution of that legacy, proof that the foundation Waters helped build could support even bolder voices and more direct approaches to change. Media coverage of the Waters-Crockett relationship perfectly encapsulates the broader narrative challenge facing Democrats in 2025. How to frame internal diversity as strength rather than weakness when political journalists are trained to identify conflict and division. Recent polling shows the Democratic Party's approval rating has plummeted to just 31%, with many observers attributing this decline to perceptions of disunity and unclear messaging. Against this backdrop, every interaction between prominent Democrats gets scrutinized for signs of either encouraging collaboration or destructive infighting. The coverage reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how effective political organizations actually function. Media narratives often present party unity and internal competition as mutually exclusive, when successful parties actually require both elements simultaneously. The Democratic National Committee's recent summer meeting in Minneapolis demonstrated this tension perfectly. While Chair Ken Martin emphasized unity in public appearances, behind-the-scenes discussions revealed significant strategic disagreements about everything from Trump opposition tactics to Middle East policy positions. The Waters-Crockett dynamic challenges these simplistic media frames because it demonstrates how two strong personalities can maintain mutual respect while pursuing different approaches to shared goals. Their relationship doesn't fit neatly into mentor versus rival or establishment versus insurgent categories that political reporters prefer. Instead, it represents something more sophisticated: strategic collaboration between different generations and communication styles within the same movement. This complexity often gets lost in coverage that prioritizes drama over nuance. When outlets frame every interaction between Democratic leaders as potential conflict, they miss opportunities to explore how the party's diversity of voices and approaches might actually strengthen its capacity to reach different constituencies. The result is coverage that reinforces public perceptions of Democratic disarray, even when the underlying reality involves productive collaboration and strategic coordination. Ultimately, the relationship between Maxine Waters and Jasmine Crockett proved that political confrontations don't always require winners and losers. Sometimes they can elevate everyone involved while advancing shared objectives. Both women emerged from their interactions with enhanced reputations, expanded platforms, and deeper respect from colleagues and constituents alike. Their dynamic demonstrated that strategic sparring could strengthen rather than weaken political alliances when approached with mutual respect and common purpose. Waters solidified her position as not just a fierce individual advocate, but as a mentor capable of recognizing and nurturing rising talent without feeling threatened by their success. Her willingness to engage authentically with Crockett, to create space for her voice, and to share platforms rather than hoarding them reinforced her legacy as someone who builds movements rather than merely occupying positions. This approach enhanced her reputation among younger progressives while maintaining her credibility with institutional Democrats. For Crockett, the interactions provided invaluable opportunities to demonstrate her capability on a national stage alongside one of Congress's most respected figures. Rather than being overshadowed or intimidated, she used these moments to showcase her legal expertise, quick wit, and authentic communication style. The exchanges established her as someone who could hold her own with political legends while maintaining her distinctive voice and approach. Their collaborative relationship also served broader Democratic Party interests by modeling how different generations and leadership styles could complement rather than compete with each other. At a time when the party faced criticism for internal divisions and unclear messaging, Waters and Crockett provided an example of productive diversity within shared commitment to progressive values. Most importantly, both women understood that their individual success was interconnected, that lifting each other up created more opportunities for advancing policies that would benefit the communities they both served with such passion and dedication.